Okay, let's try and unpack this. We've got, well, a situation that looks incredibly unstable. A government shutdown heading towards day 38.
Hmm.
Real political paralysis.
Yeah.
And you can see the reaction just cascading through the economy.
Yeah.
What I think we need to explore today is how this gridlock isn't just, stopping government work.
Right.
It seems to be actively pushing towards some really high-risk economic strategies.
That's really the core of it. We're trying to connect these three big threads: the political mess, the very real instability hitting consumers and markets, and then these, well, frankly, highly unorthodox financial plans.
Yeah, championed by political appointees, no less.
Exactly. And you need to understand this mix of political failure and economic risk isn't just theory. It's actively challenging fundamental systems right now, things like food aid, even international finance.
It really does feel like we're moving past just instability and maybe into, well, crisis territory. The immediate economic hit is obvious, right? The NASDAQ falling.
Worst week since April, yeah.
But for most people, maybe the biggest sign of distress is psychological.
I think that's right. And what's fascinating there is the consumer sentiment data. It's plunged, almost a record low.
Wow.
And this number, it measures confidence, what people feel about the future, economically speaking. So when the government's closed, you hear about companies maybe letting people go, costs are high. That confidence just collapses.
It makes sense. People see uncertainty ahead.
And that uncertainty, it fundamentally changes how people spend, how they invest, their behavior shifts.
And trying to figure out how bad things are is complicated by this total lack of official clarity, isn't it?
Well,
the government's shut down, so no official national unemployment numbers.
Exactly. We're kind of operating in an information vacuum right when we need the data most,
Yeah.
during a downturn.
So what do? Rely on comparisons.
That's what we're forced to do, yeah. Contrasts and hypotheses. Like Canada, their unemployment rate actually fell recently to 6.9%. Meanwhile, the last U.S. number we got from the Chicago Fed back in October was 4.4%. That's a huge difference.
So the thinking is the real U.S. number is probably much closer to Canada's, or maybe even worse.
That's the hypothesis, yeah. Because, and this is the crucial part, those official U.S. numbers often miss people who've just checked out.
Stop looking for work altogether.
Exactly. They drop out of the statistics.
Yeah.
So if you connect that to the shutdown, the political paralysis is actively hiding the true depth of the economic pain. We're stuck with these incomplete comparisons that might seriously understate what people are actually going through trying to pay their bills.
Okay, so domestic distress is possibly being underestimated. Let's look at the markets then. This tech stock slide follows an $800 billion AI sell-off. That sounds massive.
It is massive.
Yeah.
And the comparisons being drawn are pretty stark.
Like what?
Like the dot-com bubble in 2000, that kind of frenzy. We're seeing huge amounts of money, capital expenditures pouring into AI, building data centers, new infrastructure.
Okay, investment is usually good, no.
Well, yes, but here's the twist. The key detail is that this massive investment, it's increasingly debt-financed.
So companies are borrowing huge sums
Staggering amounts, yeah.
to build up this AI capability.
Well, enormous debt is funding infrastructure that's designed to, basically replace workers. That's the setup. Where's the systemic risk in that, especially, with the government shutdown hampering any kind of oversight?
The risk is sort of twofold. First, the sources are warning that some of these AI bets are questionable.
Like the dot-com era. It's a website, it must make money.
Precisely. Now it's automation, it must make money.
Right.
This instability, this reliance on debt for potentially shaky returns is being called completely unsustainable.
Okay, that's one risk. What's the second?
The second, and this is critical, is the timing. This incredibly volatile investment strategy is happening exactly when the regulatory bodies, the oversight groups, they're paralyzed by the shutdown.
So they can't assess the risk or mitigate it.
Right. They can't properly gauge the systemic danger this huge pile of debt poses to the wider market. Wow. Okay, so that's like a financial time bomb ticking away while the government's basically neglecting it. Let's pivot back to the politics causing this neglect, the gridlock itself. How are political figures prioritizing things right now, it seems? Symbolic fights over actual survival sometimes.
Well, look at the efforts to end the shutdown. They failed immediately. Democrats put forward a plan. Seemed pretty straightforward.
What was it?
Basically, extend the current ACA healthcare subsidies, Obamacare, for just 1 year. Control costs a bit, set up a committee to figure out the future.
Okay, that sounds like a temporary fix, a bridge. Yeah. Especially since polling, even reported by Fox News, apparently shows 3/4 of Americans are okay with the current ACA setup.
You'd think so. But the sources say Republicans just sneered at the deal.
Sneered.
Yeah. Which strongly suggests the fight isn't really about the practicalities of the solution, is it?
It's about the fight itself, the political leverage.
Seems that way. And you see this attitude reflected in the administration's other priorities during the shutdown.
Right. And this is where things get jarring. While basic government functions are on hold, the administration is focusing energy on challenging essential social programs.
Precisely. They put in an urgent request for an emergency pause on a judge's order in order to fully fund SNAP.
SNAP, that's the main food assistance program.
That's right, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So that's an active move to try and halt food aid during a major economic crisis while the government is closed.
It really raises questions about focus, doesn't it? While core services and aid are being challenged, we're seeing these other almost odd political actions happening simultaneously.
Yes, like asking the Justice Department to investigate meat packers for possible price fixing on beef.
Okay.
And separately, mention of pardoning Darryl Strawberry, all during this period of real struggle for many people.
So the focus seems fractured. Trying to pause food aid, investigating beef prices, issuing pardons, while the basics aren't being addressed.
It definitely highlights a, let's say, peculiar set of priorities far removed from stabilizing the population's basic needs.
So, if the domestic strategy seems to be collapsing under debt and challenged aid programs, let's look at this other plan, this highly unconventional idea the administration seems to be pursuing to avoid insolvency. We're talking about funding the government using crypto.
This is exactly where the dysfunction pushes things towards extreme high-risk strategies. The goal pushed by appointees like Mirren seems to be stack the Fed, force interest rates lower, and really promote crypto. There's this underlying belief that, quote, crypto is going to save us.
Okay, but how? The specific mechanism involves stablecoins, right? How does a surge in stablecoins help lower interest rates? And why does that matter for funding our deficit?
Right, so here's the financial plumbing, as it were. Stablecoins, these are cryptos pegged to the U.S. dollar. They need huge reserves to keep that peg stable.
Makes sense. They need collateral.
Exactly. And to hold these reserves, what do they often buy? Short-term U.S. Treasury bills, T-bills. That's basically the government's short-term debt.
Ah, I see.
So the source uses this phrase, multi-trillion-dollar elephant in the room, because this massive global demand for crypto dollars is, indirectly, driving huge foreign demand for our government debt.
So, wait. The more crypto gets sold around the world, the more foreign entities buy U.S. debt to back it up, which funds the U.S. government. Is that it?
That seems to be the idea, yes. It's essentially a Hail Mary plan. Fund the U.S. deficit using money generated globally by largely unregulated crypto.
Which kind of insulates political decisions from domestic consequences, doesn't it? Is that the danger here?
That's exactly the goal stated.
Yeah.
Use this external demand to fund government operations. And the danger, yes, it lies squarely in the regulation, or rather the lack of it.
What do the sources say about regulation?
They predict this whole Trump coin system, as they call it, will be regulated by Trumpers, which the sources interpret as meaning no regulations.
Wow.
It's an incredibly high-risk way to approach funding a multi-trillion-dollar deficit, a deficit caused partly by this very political dysfunction. And the prediction attached is pretty blunt. This won't end well.
That lack of regulation is deeply unsettling. Okay, let's bring this back down to earth for a minute. The real-world physical consequences of the shutdown for ordinary people.
Yeah.
They're getting worse.
They are. We're seeing things like airport activity dropping significantly, flights being canceled, now down 20%, which is up from 10% earlier.
And that directly hits economic activity, travel, business.
Absolutely. And we have to place this mounting economic hardship against something else that's looming. Winter. A serious winter.
We need the forecast.
Yeah, an Arctic freeze is predicted, potentially breaking cold records going back to the 1800s.
Oh my goodness. So you have families struggling with already high energy bills, maybe facing historic cold.
Right, dealing with income uncertainty because of the shutdown.
And then on top of that, their basic food support, SNAP, is being deliberately challenged by the administration. It's just devastating to think about.
It seems the administration's own crisis management focus is highly selective. While they're actively challenging food aid here, the sources show this simultaneous, very decisive pivot in foreign affairs.
Towards Gaza.
Specifically towards Gaza, yes. And the sources suggest this sudden shift might be driven by specific administration interests, maybe related to hotels or casinos there.
And we're seeing the U.S. step up its presence dramatically, establishing a U.S. military-led coordination center. CMCC, is that it?
That's the one. And this center is being put in charge of implementing the peace plan and overseeing humanitarian aid delivery into Gaza.
Even though its initial operations are described as chaotic.
Chaotic and indecisive, yes. And what's really striking is the observation that this move effectively sidelines Israel.
Wow, so?
It relegates Israel to a secondary role in deciding how aid gets into Gaza. The U.S.-led CMCC takes the lead. It's a profound shift.
So the chaos at home, the collapsing confidence, the lack of basic government stability is mirrored by these chaotic, decisive moves abroad, suddenly taking charge of a really sensitive international aid operation.
That seems to be the picture painted, yes.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. What does it all mean? We start with a historic shutdown. We saw an $800 billion AI bubble pop, fueled by debt and maybe questionable hype. We saw the administration trying to put an emergency pause on food aid for its own citizens. And we ended up with this wild strategy to fund the government using a multi-trillion-dollar crypto initiative.
Right.
And simultaneously, a major American intervention in Gaza replacing traditional aid oversight structures. It's a lot.
It is. And the key insight here, I think, is that the political dysfunction is the catalyst. When you hit this level of paralysis, it forces the conversation towards these extreme high-risk options.
Like the debt-fueled AI boom or the unregulated stablecoins.
Exactly. And it happens while basic needs food aid, healthcare stability are being actively rejected or undermined. The paralysis isn't just stopping things. It's actively catalyzing dangerous alternatives, financially, strategically, across the board.
So here's something to think about. When consumer confidence is hitting rock bottom and political figures are actively disrupting fundamental systems like food aid or healthcare, how much does that chaos, that domestic turmoil, truly influence these seemingly separate worlds like tech valuations or global conflict zones?
Yeah.
Maybe those connections are stronger and potentially more dangerous than we usually assume.